A fully stocked whiskey shelf for $220. And listen, I could have just picked the cheapest of each type, each category that I'm recommending you, and that would have been even cheaper than $220. I didn't do that. I picked really good, solid value whiskeys in each of the categories that I think you should try. We're going to talk about what this guy is here at the end. And if you're newer to whiskey, this is going to get your feet wet. You're going to learn a ton from each of these bottles. If you're not newer to whiskey and any of these bottles in front of me are new to you, you're probably going to want to try them. I think each of these are really great representations of the categories that I recommend somebody buys when they're starting a whiskey shelf from scratch for $220. Let's do it. Now, before we get to specific bottles, it's important that you know, even if you don't buy the exact bottles that I'm talking about here, I highly recommend buying the different categories of whiskey that I'm talking about. We have 6 very different tasting whiskeys using different techniques, different ingredients. You're going to learn a ton from doing that versus buying 6 different kinds of the same type of whiskey. So for example, in the United States, bourbon is super popular. If you buy 6 different types of bourbon, you're not going to learn nearly as much as if you buy the 6 different categories that we're talking about here. So let's start off with a high rye bourbon. High rye bourbon is going to give you that classic bourbon-y bourbon flavor. It's the classic bourbon recipe, except when they have a little bit of rye, bourbon's mostly corn, they throw some rye in. With a high rye bourbon, they're cranking up that rye even more so that you can really see what rye does to the flavor of a whiskey. You're going to get more herbal notes, you're going to get more black pepper, you're going to get a little bit more of a punch, I would say. It's going to have stronger flavors to it versus not a high rye or a wheated bourbon, which we're going to be talking about. And I recommend, if you're starting a whiskey shelf, try out New Riff bourbon. This is their bottled and bond 100 proof bourbon. It's about $40 for the bottle, and it's pretty approachable, pretty easy to drink, but you still get those classic high rye flavors, which we're about to dive into. Yeah, on the nose, high rye bourbons for me always have this like candy, sugary sweetness with oak undertones because it's got, like I said, that classic bourbon flavor. And then you get a little bit of something else. Here, I would say it's mostly black pepper, a touch of fresh cut hay. Something along those lines. That is mostly coming from that rye, and you'll see the difference when we get to the wheated bourbon. But let's dive into the flavor. Yeah. Those greener, almost more herbal notes come through a little bit more on the palate. You're still getting oak, you're getting vanilla, you're getting caramel, you're getting lots of classic bourbon, but you get something else with that. And so that's gonna help you learn the classic bourbon profile and also what you can expect when you have a little bit more rye in your recipe. Where some high ryes are really just gonna punch you in the mouth, I think this has a nice balance, that oak sweet with that rye influence. So that's gonna be bottle number 1 for your shelf. Bottle number 2 is gonna be the opposite end of the bourbon spectrum, but still in the bourbon world. We've got wheated bourbon. A wheated bourbon, you take the same mash bill that you would have for a normal bourbon, which is some corn, some rye, usually a little bit of malted barley. That's very typical. You take out the rye and you add in wheat instead. Or sometimes you'll have both, but in this case, you take all the rye out, you add wheat instead. This is Green River wheated bourbon. This won the best bourbon in the world at the New York Wine and Spirits competition in 2025. So very, very tasty wheated bourbon, and you're not gonna believe it, it's $35. I absolutely love this bottle for $35. Wheated bourbon is gonna show you the other end of the bourbon spectrum. So when you compare this to the high rye bourbon, you can see bourbon. And when you contrast them and you see what's different, you can see rye versus wheat. So you're gonna have more of that oaky sweetness right up front. You're gonna see that underlying vanilla and caramel that is just so popular for a bourbon to have. But you're also, with this, gonna get some burnt sugar. You're gonna get some stone fruits, like peaches, like plums. A little bit of an added sweetness that you don't see with the high rye bourbons. Yeah, it almost has like a creamy feel to it, a creamy taste to it. Its viscosity, it's thick, it floats across your tongue really nicely. It just lands in the sweeter space while still having that oak backbone, that bourbon backbone, so you can once again compare that to the high rye bourbon. This is bottle number 2. Bottle number 3 is a rye whiskey, and I went back and forth on which rye whiskey I wanted to do. I landed on Middle West Spirits Straight Rye Whiskey. And here's why, okay? So some rye whiskeys, especially lower shelf, especially more, I would say, classic rye whiskeys, are going to have so much kick to them that your average, especially newer whiskey drinker, might not like them. I feel like this bottle, for just 40 bucks, balances out some sweet and some spice. It still doesn't taste like bourbon, don't get me wrong. It's gonna taste different from the high rye bourbon, but it's still going to have some sweetness to make it not quite so offensive, especially to the newer whiskey drinker. On the nose, you can immediately tell the difference. You get way more spice. It kind of just smells like you opened up your spice cabinet. There's a little bit of greenery with this, like an herbal type flavor, but not as much as there are with other rye whiskeys. So for example, it smells a little bit like pine. Other rye whiskeys, that might be like all that you smell when you go to take a nose of them. On the palate, this one has a little bit more balance, which is why we picked it. Yeah, you still get those green flavors, and it still doesn't really taste like bourbon, but you get a darker sweetness with it. You get almost like the burnt sugar of the Green River Wheated. Don't get me wrong, presented totally differently with more spice notes, more black pepper here. But you get an underlying, maybe it's molasses, an underlying flavor like that that's a little bit darker that makes it come across not so offensive. You know, I'd even say there's a little something like a dried fruit in there. So there's a lot going on, really tasty, and you're gonna get a lot more for your money than you would with a lower shelf rye whiskey, especially if you're newer. Now, while I finish this Middle West Spirits, please take a moment to go down the description and check out the Whiskey Noobs crew. It's the absolute best way to support this channel. Every penny goes towards supporting this channel financially. And on top of that, you get some really cool stuff. I think it's a fair trade. You get access to my barrel picks before anybody else. You get access to the reviews of every single bottle that I'm sent for review. You get merch after a certain amount of time in each of the different tiers, different types of merch. It's a really great deal in my personal opinion, so please consider going and checking it out. Thank you so much. So far, we've only had American whiskeys, so it's time for us to go across the pond with Johnnie Walker Black Label. Now, I know this is a basic answer, and if you're newer to whiskey, you're probably like, I've heard of Johnnie Walker. But let me explain to you why this deserves a spot on your shelf. And I'm talking specifically about the Black Label. Every label of Johnnie Walker is a little bit different. Some of them are very different. Johnnie Walker Black Label is about 40 bucks, so it's mid-priced, middle shelf Scotch, and I think it presents Scotch whiskey very well. I've done blind tastings with it where I've just been totally blown away, thought I was drinking something way more expensive. It has a little touch of the smoky flavor that you can expect from some Scotch whiskeys. So if you hear Scotch is really smoky, it's got a little bit of that smoky flavor to it, but it's not offensive. You get sweetness with it so that you can see whether or not you like that smoky flavor. On the nose, the smoke does come through it. I think it comes through more on the nose than it does on the palate. Then you also get like a sweet malty flavor that to me always reminds me of granola, honey, something like that. You can expect that from some of those single malt whiskeys. And then on the palate, very approachable, glides right across your tongue. You get more of that maltiness. You get a little bit less of the smoke on the palate than you do on the nose, but you still get to see that smoke. You still get to decide whether or not you like that smoke. There's a little bit of fruit as well, very approachable, and like I said, doesn't really burn you up. So it's really nice, easy beginner, dipping your toe into the land of Scotch whiskey. Now, if you do hate that, I have a bonus bottle for you. If you hate smoke, and you know that, you've had Scotch before, you know that you hate all smoky Scotches, then instead I recommend buying Bruichladdich Classic Laddie. This is a little bit more expensive, but it's very sweet, very creamy, vanilla, coconut forward, and not a hint of that peaty smoke at all. It doesn't have that. If you think all Scotches are smoky, try this guy instead. Now, moving over into Irish whiskey, you've got to try an Irish whiskey. And listen, if that Johnnie Walker was too smoky and you don't want to try the Bruichladdich, this will also get you that sweet malty flavor. It's just going to be a little bit different than a malty Scotch would be. So this is going to have a very classic Irish whiskey profile. You get sweetness, you get more of that sort of granola honey flavor that I mentioned, but it comes through here with less of like a citrus or a sourness and more of some dried fruit. There is some sherry influence to this. Those sorts of flavors that makes it, I would say, deeper and darker than like a light, very sweet Scotch like that Bruichladdich. And of course, this has none of that smoke that Johnnie Walker has. This is not peated at all. So it's going to give you some very classic Irish whiskey notes. And guess what? It's going to do it for 25 bucks. Let's taste it. I genuinely think this is one of the best values on this list. This is, I think, the cheapest bottle on this list. Let me check my notes. I'm pretty sure it is. And it has body. It's not very harsh at all. It is extremely tasty. You get that sherry influence. You get that sweetness. It makes your mouth water. It's just not insanely complex. I'm okay with that for 25 bucks. I think this is just one of the best values, especially if you want to try an Irish whiskey. 25 bucks, really tasty. This one deserves to be on your shelf. Before we get to that bonus bottle that I showed you in the beginning, we've got one more category. Don't leave this off, okay? Do yourself a favor. Try some American single malts. This one is at such a great price that it makes it really accessible and really easy to try. Town Branch 7-year American single malt. They call it a Kentucky single malt because it's made in Kentucky. This is going to get your feet wet with American single malts, and let me tell you something, I don't think you're going to regret it. It's sweet. It's approachable. You can see the parallels with the other malt-based ones, the Irish whiskeys and the Scotches. You can see some of those parallels, but it has its own personality going on. It's more earthy. It's a little bit darker, way stronger on the nose, way stronger stone fruits, kind of like peach for me, maybe even a little bit of tropical fruit. Very bright and sweet. And then on the palate, let's dive in. Oh yeah. On the palate, it's so much more sweet and fruity. It's like, out of anything so far, you're gonna notice the fruitiness and the sweetness of this the most. And if I didn't mention it already, $40 for this bottle makes it really easy to get your hands on, really approachable of a price range, especially for American single malts, which tend to run a little bit higher, so you can see if you're gonna like it or not. Now you might be thinking, why would an American single malt taste any different than a single malt from Scotland? That's an excellent question. First of all, slightly different techniques. Every distiller is gonna do things a little bit differently. Second of all, in the United States, we're aging in a totally different climate than they're aging over in Scotland. So you get some pretty extremely different flavors. Like, it's pretty more different. How am I gonna say this? It's more different than you think it's gonna be. That's what I'm trying to say. This is so good that it's got me blabbering. It's got me stuttering. Let's talk about one more bottle. So right now you've got 6 fantastic bottles for about 220 bucks. That's gonna teach you so much about whiskey. You're gonna learn a ton from it. Now in the beginning, I alluded to this placeholder right here. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is not a bottle. That's just a placeholder for the actual bottle. I didn't have anything fancy that I could put over the bottle, that I could drape over it. After you taste all of these, you're gonna learn a lot about each type of category, okay? Pick your favorite category, and everybody's favorite question is, what special occasion bottle should I buy? Well, you should try all these first so you know which special occasion bottle to buy. Right now, I'm very into American single malts. I tasted this, I've tasted a bunch of other American single malts, and I decided I really like American single malts. So I saw this Jack Daniel's American single malt. This is their Oloroso sherry finished batch bottle brand, whatever. And I saw it, and they only sell it at duty free, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a try. This is a little bit less than 100 bucks now, but if you've spent 220, you've established a great foundation, maybe you took a few months, maybe you took a year, maybe you took a couple years to work your way through these and really learn a lot about them. Then you know what direction you want to go. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is gonna taste very different from this, but it's gonna taste the most like the American single malt versus anything else on this table right now. So you can learn so much about what type of category it is that you like, then go out on the limb and buy yourself that special occasion bottle that you want. And now that you've got a good looking, presentable whiskey shelf, make sure you subscribe, ring the notification bell, comment down below what your favorite bottle is on here or what you would add. Like the video, and once again, please don't forget, go down and check out the Whiskey Noobs crew in the description below. Thank you guys all so much for watching Whiskey Noobs.